الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي اللهم رب زدنا علما اللهم رب زدنا علما وحلما وكرما وصدقا وإخلاصا وعملا يا رب العالمين اللهم كن لإخواننا في فلسطين وغزة وليا ونصيرا اللهم انصرهم على أعدائك وأعدائهم نصرا مبينا يا رب العالمين وصلى وسلم على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I've already covered this part, but I'll just read through it again to see if there's anything more to say about it. For the great majority of Muslims, today, the Sharia undoubtedly remains a source of religious and moral authority, whereas some Islamic regimes have adopted the policy of distilling from the Sharia while flagrantly disregarding both its procedural laws and communal context. Such punishments are as dismemberment and stoning. The average Muslim individual continues to find the Sharia a spiritual resource, a connection with God, and a way to discipline the inner self, what we discuss later under the rubric of technologies of the self. So, covered this part. To say that the overwhelming majority of modern Muslims wish for the Sharia to return in one form or another is to state what anyone with even a cursory knowledge of world affairs would readily acknowledge. The question of why they entertain this wish will be answered in good part in the following chapters. Why? Although this is not an intended object of this book. Okay. Yet, as located in the modern condition, this wish entails an aporia. Muslims today, including their leading intellectuals, have come to take the modern state for granted, accepting it as natural reality. So we looked at this in a fair bit of detail. They often assume it not only to have existed throughout a long course of their history, but also to have been sanctioned by no less than authority of the Quran itself. So here, as we noted again and again, is like he's using modern state, but what he's actually denying is the state itself, denying or whatever. So there is using modern state, but then in the next they often assume. So do the Muslims or his intellectuals he is talking about, do they assume that modern state always existed? I mean, or existed in Islamic history, or the state? So these are two different questions. Even nationalism, an unprecedented phenomena, nationalism in its modern form is an unprecedented phenomena, as is liberalism and socialism, but they have their roots in human history, human sociology, and human nature. So in that sense, they are not unprecedented, because we should remember that batil, or the falsehood doesn't really create anything new. It is zulm. And zulm, as it is defined in the dictionary meaning of zulm, is wadu shay fi ghayri mahallihi. I don't know how to translate zulm. It's hard to translate in English, because I think the nearest translation would be injustice. So injustice is to put a thing where it doesn't belong. So falsehood doesn't create things, but it puts things where they don't belong. So they change the configuration of things in that sense. So every batil is a new configuration of already existing things, uh, in a way in which things are put where they don't belong. And in that sense, falsehood is zulm or injustice. Okay. So even nationalism, an unprecedented phenomena and one uniquely constituted of the modern state. Well, if it means that modern state is constituted by nationalism and nothing, uniquely constituted by nationalism alone, then that's a misconception, because there are other elements. There's the liberal element, there's socialist element. They all contributed to the creation of the modern state. Even nationalism, an unprecedented phenomena and one uniquely constituted of constitutive of the modern state, is said to have been launched into the world by the Islamic Holy Constitution. The Holy Constitution. I mean, if somebody says that nationalism was launched by Islam, then I mean, that's their problem. Islam, obviously, Arab nationalists claim that Islam was a moment in the glory of Arab genius, but that doesn't have any scholarly or evidential basis. So even nationalism, an unprecedented phenomenon, and one uniquely constituted of the modern state, is said to have been launched into the world by the Islamic Holy Constitution, similarly drafted in Medina 14 years ago. Obviously, if somebody claims that, that's a wrong claim. And also, a constitution is something. Obviously, the constitutions existed, but the modern meaning of constitution, which creates a republic or which defines a republic, is entirely modern phenomenon, nothing to do with Misaq-e-Medina. That's a great misconception of some of the recent Islamic scholarship. There's no doubt about that. Modern constitution, conception of constitution, is the basis of the modern state. And the modern state is a republic. That republic can be a nationalist republic, liberal republic, socialist republic, Islamic republic. These are all the forms of republics. And the constitution is what defines a republic. So a republic is a state. And this state can be nationalist, liberal, and socialist. And all existing liberal or national socialist republics and Islamic republics are nationalist as well. So nationalism is, in a sense, the common factor. So you have liberal nationalism, socialist nationalism, and Islamic nationalism or Muslim nationalism. But then you have more pure forms of nationalism like Nazism and fascism, etc. So a republic as a state ruled by the law of capital. So modern state is a capitalist state. A republic is a capitalist state. The law of capital. And republic is governed by a constitution, and that constitutions make sure that that state is ruled by the law of capital. So a republic, and obviously constitutions, human rights, and human rights are basically capitalist rights, which ensure that all legislation is according to the law of capital, under its boundaries, etc., according to its rationality, etc. So modern constitution is the statement of human rights, which enshrines the law of capital as the only sovereign law of the state. And that's what makes the state a republic. So I don't know who said that Medina, the Misak of Medina was the foundation of nationalism, but he refers to Jackson. I don't know whether Jackson said that or Jackson gives further references, but it's all irrelevant to us. Whether Jackson or pseudo-Islamic intellectuals, they have no bearing on Orthodox Islamic scholarship. Now, early Islamic societies are also viewed as having developed a concept of citizenship, democracy, and suffrage. That for number 7, he mentions Kurdi, Mahmud, and Qureshi. And for number 8, he mentioned Kurdi. So obviously, those people who say that Islam developed the concept of citizenship or democracy or universal suffrage, they either don't know democracy or don't know Islam or don't know both of them. So unlike some globalization theorists and political scientists who call into question the future durability of the state, modern Islamist thinkers, and scholars, in the footnote he says that for an average expression of such anachronism in modern scholarship, see Muhammad Fadil, Tragedy of Polyphony, imagine a concept of pre-modern Islamic state that must fit into the parameters of the modern states. I don't know what does that mean. Such apologetics charge political ideology with pseudo scholarly narrative, thereby elevating dogma and pseudo-history to a scholarly status. On the modern Islamist writers, see Yuban and Zaman, Princeton readings. Yuban is a Jewish author. So obviously he has he doesn't like Islamists. But with Islamism, what is valid is Islamist Orthodox Islamists think like Maulana Maududi, for example. What is valid in their discourse is that they address the issue which is a watershed in recent Islamic history and a totally unique phenomenon in Islamic history. And that event is that Islamic states which existed in different forms throughout the Islamic history for 1200 years, those Islamic states were colonized, all of them, directly or indirectly, and dismantled. And in their place, modern republics were created. And those republics were and are subservient to imperialism. So they address the phenomena of the dismantling of Islamic State and subservience to imperialism. And so we don't have Islamic State, but we have Muslim states now, which are all subservient to imperialism. So this is the fact of, nobody can deny that. And the merit of Islamists is that they address this issue. And their focus on state is not because they are statist, or as some Muslim scholars think as well, wrongly I think. But it's a natural thing when you address an issue which is such a unique issue and you're trying to persuade other Muslims, especially Muslim scholars, to take that into consideration, then obviously you are going to take, you're going to end up overemphasizing that facts, because that's what you are concerned with. That's what. It doesn't mean that you don't think the other things are not important, but you know that other things are being dealt with, and this thing is not being dealt with. That's what every mujaddid does. Every mujaddid overemphasizes something which he or she thinks that is being ignored and is being underemphasized. So the difference between Orthodox Muslim scholars and Orthodox Muslim Islamists, Orthodox Islamist, is that Islamists realize this momentous transformation in Islamic history, while many Orthodox Muslims don't realize it as a momentous and watershed moment. So that's the main difference. So that's the merit of Islamists. Obviously, Hallaq obviously doesn't care about that. But the legitimate critique of Islamists is that their even though they realized the fact that Islamic State was dismantled, and that was a transformational moment, and we have to create new Islamic states which can dealt with the problem of imperialism and the problem of the subservience of Islam to imperialism, and re-establish the sovereignty of Islam at the level of state again. Their understanding of more, so that's where we criticize Islam. We question their understanding of the modern state, because obviously they are impressed by the fact that modern state is a totalizing machine and all that, and they emphasize the point that the dismantling of Islamic State was a watershed moment in Islamic history. But then they didn't further deeply analyze the nature of modern state. So that's the one critique we have. So we don't reject Islamists. We try to build on their work in that sense. So we question Maulana Maududi's conception of modern state. And your conception of modern state will affect your strategy, your politics for creating Islamic State. So we also question their strategy. I mean, they were path breakers, they were innovators, they gave some ideas, but we can't stop at those ideas. We have to develop and keep developing new ideas, and those strategies are not revealed things from God. They are man-made things which are developed according to the general principles under the guidance of Sharia, but they themselves are not part of God's commands. They are just human endeavors, and like any other human endeavor, they should be critiqued, they should be developed, they should be according to the experience and according to the fruits they bear, etc., etc. Okay, let's go back. So the critique is sort of leveling against Islamists is legitimate to a certain extent, but it's a critique made in bad faith in a sense, because it's not contextualized properly. But as Muslim Islamic revolutionaries, we differentiate between this generic term Islamists and really orthodox Islamists. So unlike some globalization theorists and political science who call in question the future durability of the state, modern Islamic thinkers and scholars, thinkers and scholars, what does he mean by thinkers and scholars? Well, Islamically, a scholar is something totally different from what they call scholars. None of the people he is quoting are a scholar in any sense of the word, Islamically speaking. Take the modern state for granted and in effect as a timeless phenomenon. Modern state, who takes modern state as granted and effect timeless phenomenon? You can say state is a timeless phenomenon in the sense that it's actual existence, but obviously the nature of state changes and all that. So number 10, he says, on such views see Jackson, Shirazi, and Roy. Roy accurately described the phenomenon of political Islam with the state as an obsession. They are obsessed with the state because the state is important, and they are obsessed because ulama don't realize that, so they are trying to make them realize. So they, as we said, overemphasize it. And Roy's criticism of political Islam is justified to a certain extent, but Hallaq, Roy is, I think he's gone mad after 9/11, but he had more substance than Hallaq. Um, Roy was essentially sympathetic to Islamists and political Islamists, but Hallaq is obviously a apolitical postmodernist. As far as I can see, I might have to, amend my view as we go along. But so far, it seems to me he is a apolitical um, postmodernist. Okay, we'll stop here, inshallah, and continue from here. Assalamu alaikum.